The weather has turned colder again in recent days, but it's very much the raw and damp variety. So I guess the question which many people are now asking is, can we expect something more severe as we head towards the middle of the month? And is there any sign of widespread snow? Well, before trying to answer those two questions, I think it's just worth defining what severe could mean. Here are some examples which do it. Mid-February 1979, a very famous snowy spell of weather. 1991, of course, remembered for producing the wrong type of snow. That was when low temperatures led to powdery snow falling. It got into the motors of electric trains, particularly in the commuter areas around London, and there was havoc because those trains stopped working, of course. Then finally, the beast from the east, as it has become known, February and March 2018, a particularly severe spell. But the takeout here is that severe spells are few and far between in recent decades, so statistically we're not off to a good start. But what does the data suggest? Well, here's a view on Saturday the 8th February. The UK is just here under the relatively light blue shading, which indicates coldish air aloft but nothing notable. What is notable is the lack of cold pooling to our north and east. You can see some green shading there over eastern France, the Low Countries and Germany, also even in northern Scandinavia. There is colder air just over the southern half of Scandinavia, but it's a relatively small pool. What we need to see happening is the blues and purples, which are way to the north and the east, making their way southwards and westwards, if of course it's severe cold, which we want to see in the United Kingdom. So running the sequence, does that happen? Here we go. In the short term, there's some relatively cold air feeding in from the east at times, but temperatures will be fluctuating. But by the middle of the month, what we see is the purples and dark blues have indeed made their way down across much of the continent. So it's really turning a good deal colder, and that deep cold is threateningly close to the United Kingdom. So this is one computer model run, of course, and it's suggesting there is a possibility of something a lot colder and severer than what we currently have. But how well supported is that scenario? It's important not to look at one computer model run. Instead, we should be looking at many, and this plot is showing all of the individual runs in the ensemble model for GEFS. It's initiated on Saturday the 8th of February. Now, at the start, most of these green dots are close together, which is indicating all of the runs are forecasting something similar, which is what you would expect at a short range. But as we head forward through the second week of February, the spread starts to increase for some runs which are bringing in mild air, 5 Celsius thereabouts at the 850 HPA level. That's about 1,500 meters over our heads. Also, a number of runs are bringing in increasingly cold air. So that by about the 14th or 15th of February, we've got some dipping down to -10 or even a few degrees below it. It's down here, it's in this section where the runs are pointing towards very cold or severe cold, 1 or 2 dipping down or below -15, not far from the beast from the east spell in 2018. But it's the spread which is important. There's a big spread, so only a few runs are bringing in these very low values, which suggests, taken at face value, it isn't going to be happening. Here's the postage stamp plot from a different ensemble model. It's another way of looking at similar data, but instead of going forwards, this is just for one time slot, Saturday the 15th of February, and each of these stamps, as they are called, shows a forecast at that time from an individual run within the European ensemble. I think there are 50 on here, and you can count them out, but really most are not looking particularly cold. As I've said, it's the dark blues and purples which you want to see over the United Kingdom. Those are ones which would indicate the chance at least of severe weather, and it's these individual plots show the United Kingdom. Looking at the Mogreps ensemble, which is run by the UK Met Office at the same time, once more, what we see is there are some runs bringing in dark blue shading over the United Kingdom, but most are not. And there's a suggestion here, in fact, that milder air will be pushing up from the southwest at this stage. It looks like that is the more likely outcome. Now, with that said, you can see here, for example, perturbation 12, run 12, and the ensemble is indicating a very cold easterly flow with high pressure there to our north and the purple shading to our east, making its way westwards. Another way of viewing the data, of course, is on a graph like this, a line graph with each line representing the forecast from one of those individual runs within the ensemble. And this really is a messy picture. The thick purple line there is averaging out all of the individual runs. It's staying close to the thick black line, which is the 30-year norm. A big spread, though, being highlighted once more. Some mild runs and some cold ones. This is the latest update from the ensemble model, but if I step back in time to the one which was generated 6 hours earlier, we see something a little bit different. There's still a big spread, a wide range of outcomes, but now in this slightly older update, there are more lines appearing down here around or below the minus 10 Celsius 850 HPA level. So these are going for cold or very cold scenarios, but it's interesting that the number of them has reduced in the latest update. This has been fluctuating in recent days, and it means a level of confidence in any particular update. Putting them into these bar charts, data tables, what we see is quite a lot of blue shading, light blue shading. Those are runs which are slightly colder than the norm, but nothing notable, similar to what we've got in place at the moment. It's the purples, and in particular the numbers in the brackets which need to be looked at closely. The purples are showing runs forecasting below minus 4 Celsius at this level. It's the numbers in brackets which show below minus 9 Celsius. So really the percentages here which are bringing in deep cold are quite low. They're just around 12% on Sunday the 16th. It's not really pointing towards a very cold spell. At least this set of ensemble data isn't. That was from the ECM. Here's the latest from the American GEFS model. The numbers here are quite similar, at least in terms of the deep cold, 10% there, 13% on the 20th. So certainly not out of the question. These numbers have been fluctuating, as I've indicated, but on balance, it does not look like the favoured scenario. It doesn't always have to follow that we need cold, very cold air aloft for it to be cold at the surface. Here's the 2 metre temperature data table for London, so the temperatures that we actually experience rather than those aloft. They suggest in the short term rather cold conditions, the dark green indicating between 1 and 5 through the days being the maximums. The amount of dark green in the column stays high for the first week or so, but it's decreasing later on. And also there's some yellow starting to show up, 42% there by the 21st of February. Yellow indicates mild runs, 11 to 15 Celsius. So something of a warming trend appearing, but I think the message is that it's looking rather cold through to middle of February. The signs of it turning very cold are not currently strong. They are tentative at the best. So how likely is severe cold through the middle part of the month? Well, it's possible, but the data suggest that it is not the most likely outcome. Am I going to put a percentage chance on it? Well, here goes. 25% chance of very cold or severe cold developing through the middle and second half of February, but a return to a milder setup looks more likely. We could well end up with low pressure centred west or southwest pumping up milder air. As that development takes place, it would lead to a potential risk of transitional snow as a milder air moves northeastwards and bumps into the colder air across the United Kingdom, but that is very iffy. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, and I will of course have a full 14-day update next week where we'll see how things have changed.